He thought she was the help. He thought he could steal her seat, insult her dignity, and wave his platinum card to make her disappear. He was wrong. In the high-stakes world of aviation, there is one rule you never break. Know who you are talking to. When Rylan Harrington refused to move from seat 1A, he didn't just delay a flight, he ended his career. Because the woman he was screaming at wasn't just a passenger. She was the one woman on Earth who could ground the entire fleet with a single phone call. This is the story of how arrogance met its match at 30,000 feet. The early morning air at JFK International Airport hummed with the specific, frantic energy that only New York could produce. It was a symphony of rolling luggage wheels, the sharp ding of gate announcements, and the low murmur of thousands of travelers rushing toward their destinies. But for Vanessa St. James, the chaos was distant, muffled by the soundproof glass of the exclusive Royal Horizon first-class lounge. Vanessa sat by the window, sipping a sparkling water with a slice of cucumber. She checked her watch, a subtle, vintage Cartier tank that whispered wealth rather than shouted it. At 52, Vanessa carried herself with the kind of stillness that unnerved loud people. She was the CEO of Apex Global, a logistics and infrastructure conglomerate that didn't just move goods, it moved economies. Her name was whispered in boardrooms from Tokyo to London, usually with a mixture of fear and reverence. But today, she wasn't the titan of tech. She was just Vanessa, tired from a 3-week merger negotiation and desperate for the lie-flat solitude of seat 1A on flight RH402 to London Heathrow. She smoothed the lapel of her cream-colored cashmere blazer. She wasn't traveling with an entourage today. No assistants, no security detail. Just her Toomey carry-on, and the promise of 8 hours of sleep. She had specifically booked seat 1A weeks ago. It was the bulkhead seat, the one with the extra legroom and the privacy partition that ensured no one could see you sleep. It was her sanctuary. Ms. St. James? The lounge attendant, a young woman named Clara, approached with a soft smile. We are ready to board you now. The car is waiting to take you to the tarmac. Thank you, Clara, Vanessa said, her voice a rich, calm contralto. She stood up, picking up her bag. She didn't need to rush. The plane wouldn't leave without her. The private transfer, a sleek, black Porsche Cayenne, drove her across the tarmac, bypassing the chaotic jet bridge entirely. This was the service Royal Horizon promised its top-tier clientele. As she climbed the stairs to the massive Boeing 777-300ER, the cool wind whipped her hair, and she took a deep breath of jet fuel and rain. It was the smell of business. The flight attendant at the door, a polished woman with an immaculate bun named Jennifer, greeted her warmly. Welcome back, Miss St. James. It's an honor to have you flying with us again. We have your usual peppermint tea waiting at your seat. You spoil me, Jennifer. Vanessa smiled, the tension in her shoulders already beginning to loosen. I just need to sleep today. Wake me only for landing. Understood, Ma'am. Right this way. Vanessa turned left into the first-class cabin. It was a haven of soft leather, walnut wood trim, and hushed lighting. There were only 8 suites, and hers was the first one on the left, the crown jewel. She walked toward seat 1A, her mind already drifting to the soft duvet and the noise-cancelling headphones. She turned the corner of the partition, ready to drop her bag and collapse. But she stopped. Her seat wasn't empty. Sitting in seat 1A, with his shoes already off and a glass of pre-departure champagne in his hand, was a man. He was white, perhaps in his late 40s, wearing a suit that cost more than most cars, and a scowl that cost him his likability. He was typing furiously on a laptop, his elbows jutting out as if he owned the very air around him. Vanessa blinked. She checked her boarding pass. 1A. She looked at the seat number on the suite wall. 1A. She took a small breath. It was a mistake, just a simple mix-up. It happened. "Excuse me?" Vanessa said, her voice polite but firm. The man didn't look up. He took a swig of champagne and continued typing. Vanessa stepped closer, her shadow falling over his keyboard. "Excuse me, sir." The man stopped typing. He let out a dramatic, theatrical sigh, the kind a parent might give a toddler asking for candy. He slowly peeled his eyes away from the screen and looked up at her. His eyes were ice blue, but they were clouded with a dismissal that hit Vanessa like a physical slap. He looked her up and down, from her sensible loafers to her cashmere blazer, and finally to her face. "The coat check is at the front," he said, waving a hand dismissively toward the galley. "And I'll take a refill on this. Brut. Not the cheap stuff." Vanessa stood frozen for a microsecond. He thought she was the flight attendant. "I am not a flight attendant," Vanessa said, her tone cooling by 10 degrees. "You are in my seat." The man laughed. It was a short, barking sound. "Good one. Look, honey, I'm busy. If you're not the stewardess, you're in the wrong cabin. Economy is back that way." He pointed his thumb over his shoulder without looking. "Go find row 45. Vanessa's grip on her bag tightened. She had dealt with hostile takeovers, Senate hearings, and union strikes. She knew how to handle aggression. But this casual, lazy entitlement, it was something else. "Sir," she said, projecting her voice just enough to cut through the ambient cabin noise, "I am holding the boarding pass for seat 1A. You are sitting in it. Please move." The man finally closed his laptop. He turned his body fully toward her, a smirk playing on his lips. "I'm Rylan Harrington. Does that name ring a bell?" "No?" "Figures. I'm the senior VP of Orion Capital. I fly this route every Tuesday. I always sit in 1A. Always. So, if the airline screwed up your little ticket, that's a you problem, not a me problem. Now, skedaddle." He opened his laptop again, dismissing her entirely. The air in the cabin seemed to vanish. Vanessa looked at the man, Rylan Harrington, and felt a cold, hard knot form in her stomach. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. She turned around and saw Jennifer, the lead flight attendant, walking toward them with a tray of hot towels. Jennifer's eyes widened as she saw Vanessa standing in the aisle and the strange man in her seat. "Ms. St. James?" Jennifer asked, rushing forward. "Is there a problem?" "Yes, Jennifer," Vanessa said, never taking her eyes off the back of Rylan Harrington's head. "There is a very big problem." Jennifer, the purser, was a veteran of the skies. She had flown Royal Horizon for 20 years. She had seen drunks, she had seen breakups, and she had seen celebrities try to smoke in the lavatory. But the look on Vanessa St. James's face made her blood run cold. It was the look of a predator deciding whether to bite or just crush. Jennifer placed the tray down on a side console and stepped into the suite. "Sir, excuse me, sir." Rylan Harrington groaned, slamming his laptop shut again. "What is it now? Can a man not get some work done before takeoff?" "Sir, may I see your boarding pass, please?" Jennifer asked. Her voice was professional, sweetened with the customer service lilt that was designed to de-escalate. "I don't need to show you anything. I'm Rylan Harrington. Look up my status. I'm practically paying your salary." "Sir, please," Jennifer insisted. "I need to verify your seat assignment. This lady holds the ticket for 1A. Rylan rolled his eyes and dug into his suit pocket. He fished out a crumpled boarding pass and shoved it toward Jennifer. "Here. Happy?" Jennifer took the pass. She scanned it, her brow furrowing. She looked at Vanessa, then back at the pass. Mr. Harrington, Jennifer said, her voice dropping an octave, becoming serious. This boarding pass is for seat 4D. That is a center aisle seat in the second row of first class. It is not this suite. Vanessa stood silently, watching. She waited for the apology. She waited for the embarrassment. She waited for him to gather his things and shuffle to 4D. Instead, Rylan laughed. 4D? I don't do center seats. I don't like people looking at my screen, he said, waving his hand as if swatting away a fly. 1A was empty when I got on. I claimed it. That's how it works. Possession is 9/10 of the law, right? That is not how aviation works, Mr. Harrington, Jennifer said, her patience thinning. Seat 1A is assigned to Ms. St. James. She paid for this specific suite. You need to move to your assigned seat immediately. We are due to push back in 10 minutes. Rylan looked at Vanessa again. This time his gaze was nastier. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that was loud enough for the entire first-class cabin to hear. Look, Rylan said, pointing a manicured finger at Vanessa. Let's be real here. We all know how this works. Affirmative action might get you a job you're not qualified for, and it might get you into a boardroom you don't belong in, but it doesn't get you seat 1A on my flight. I'm doing important work, real work. I'm not moving for some diversity hire who probably used miles she didn't earn. The silence that followed was absolute. 2 rows back, a young tech entrepreneur in a hoodie pulled off his headphones. Across the aisle, an older British diplomat lowered his newspaper. Every pair of eyes in the cabin shifted to the front. Vanessa didn't flinch. She didn't scream. She simply adjusted the strap of her bag. Jennifer, Vanessa said softly, I would like to speak to the captain. Rylan threw his head back and laughed. The captain? You think the pilot cares about your seating arrangement? He's trying to fly a plane, lady. Sit in 4D if you want a seat. It's open now. Jennifer looked at Vanessa, her face pale. She knew who Vanessa was. Not just a passenger. Vanessa St. James was a frequent flyer of the highest order, a global services equivalent. But more than that, Jennifer remembered reading a memo about Apex Global recently. They were a major corporate partner. Mr. Harrington, Jennifer said, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. This is your final warning. You are in violation of flight crew instructions. You are insulting another passenger. If you do not move to seat 4D right now, I will be forced to escalate this. Escalate it, Rylan challenged, crossing his arms over his chest. Go ahead. Call the pilot. Call the Pope for all I care. I am Rylan Harrington of Orion Capital, and I am not moving for her. He spat the word her with a venom that made it clear exactly what he meant. Vanessa took a step forward. She looked down at Rylan, her face calm, almost serene. Mr. Harrington, Vanessa said, I am going to give you one chance to save yourself. Not for me, for you. Because if you make me make a phone call, you aren't just going to lose this seat. You are going to lose a lot more than you can afford, Rylan sneered. Is that a threat? Are you threatening me? Jennifer, did you hear that? She threatened me. I want her off this plane. She's aggressive. I don't feel safe. He pulled out his phone and started recording. Say it again for the camera, sweetheart. Threaten me again. Vanessa looked at the camera lens, unblinking. I didn't threaten you, Rylan. I warned you. Get her off, Rylan shouted, playing to his imaginary audience. She's harassing me. Jennifer stepped between them. Ms. St. James, please, step back. I will get the captain. As Jennifer hurried toward the cockpit, Vanessa turned and walked to the empty seat, 4D. She sat down. She placed her bag on the floor. She didn't argue. She didn't fight. Rylan let out a triumphant whoop. That's what I thought. Know your place." He high-fived the air and went back to his champagne. The other passengers looked at Vanessa with pity. The young tech guy shook his head. The diplomat looked disgusted. They thought she had given up. They thought she had been defeated. But Vanessa wasn't defeated. She was retrieving her phone from her purse. She unlocked it and scrolled past her emails, past her messages, to a contact saved simply as Adrian, CEO, Royal Horizon. She didn't call him. That would be too slow. She opened her secure messaging app. She typed 3 sentences. 1. I am currently on flight RH402, JFK to LHR. 2. A passenger named Rylan Harrington has forcibly taken my seat and used racial slurs against me while the crew watches. 3. Ground the plane. She hit send. Then she sat back in the inferior seat, crossed her legs, and waited. The cabin doors thumped shut, sealing the passengers inside the pressurized tube of luxury. The fasten seatbelt sign chimed with a polite, authoritative bing. Rylan Harrington settled into seat 1A like a king on a conquered throne. He kicked his feet up onto the ottoman, spreading his legs wide in a display of total dominance. He winked at the young flight attendant, Clara, as she walked past to do the final safety check. "Could I get another one of these?" he asked, rattling the ice in his empty glass. "We are preparing for departure, sir," Clara said, her voice tight. "I can serve you once we reach cruising altitude." "Fine," Rylan grumbled. "Just make sure you're quick about it." He glanced back at row 4. He couldn't see Vanessa from his angle, but the knowledge that she was squeezed into a middle seat, well, a middle aisle seat, which was practically the same thing in his mind, gave him a warm glow of satisfaction. He pulled out his phone and texted his colleague, Brad. "Some woman tried to swipe my lucky seat, told her to kick rocks. I'm in 1A. Deal is gonna close. I'm invincible." The massive engines of the Boeing 777 hummed to life, a deep vibration that shuddered through the floorboards. The plane began to push back from the gate. The safety video began to play on the screens, a slick, animated production showing diverse passengers smiling while inflating life vests. Rylan ignored it. He was already drafting the pitch for the London meeting. He was going to secure a $100 million acquisition for Orion Capital, and his bonus was going to be obscene. He was untouchable. The plane taxied toward the runway. They were third in line for takeoff. Rylan watched the tarmac slide by, the rain streaking the window. He checked his watch. On time. Perfect. And then, everything changed. The hum of the engines dropped. The forward momentum ceased. The plane didn't just slow down. It lurched to a halt with a brake application so sudden that Rylan's laptop slid off his tray table and hit the floor. "Hey," Rylan shouted. "Watch it up there." A murmur of confusion rippled through the first-class cabin. Passengers looked at each other. Usually, a pause meant traffic, but this felt different. The engine spooled down to a low idle. The lights in the cabin flickered once, then returned to full brightness. For 2 long minutes there was silence. No announcement. No movement. Just the sound of rain drumming on the fuselage. Then, the PA system crackled to life. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Miller from the flight deck." The pilot's voice was strained, lacking the usual "welcome aboard" warmth. We have been ordered by air traffic control to hold our position. We've actually been instructed to return to the gate immediately." Groans erupted throughout the cabin. "You've got to be kidding me," Rylan yelled, throwing his hands up. "I have a meeting. What is this? Mechanical." The captain continued, his voice sounding even more perplexed. "It is not a mechanical issue, folks. We have received a direct ground stop order from corporate headquarters regarding a security and personnel matter on board. We apologize for the inconvenience, but this comes from the very top. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Ryland scoffed loud enough for the first 3 rows to hear. Security matter. Unbelievable. He twisted in his seat and craned his neck to look back at row 4. He saw the top of Vanessa's head. She was sitting perfectly still. It's her, Ryland said to the man across the aisle, a baffled architect named Colin. I bet it's her. She probably texted a bomb threat because she didn't get her seat. These people are so dramatic. If she couldn't have the seat, nobody could. Colin looked uncomfortable. I don't think... Trust me, Ryland interrupted. I know the type. Entitled. Petty. Now we're all going to be late because she couldn't handle being told no. The plane made a slow, agonizing U-turn. The massive machine lumbered back toward the terminal. In seat 4D, Vanessa St. James hadn't moved. She hadn't groaned. She hadn't looked around. She was looking at her phone. A message had popped up on her screen. From Adrian, CEO, Royal Horizon. My sincerest apologies, Vanessa. This is unacceptable. We are pulling the bird back. NYPD Port Authority is meeting the jet bridge. I am handling this personally. You will be made whole. Vanessa typed a short reply. It's not about the seat, Adrian. It's about the principle. I want full disclosure on why a man like that holds platinum status on your airline. The plane docked. The seatbelt sign flicked off. Finally, Ryland muttered. He stood up, grabbing his jacket. I'm going to make sure the police know exactly who caused this disturbance. I'll testify. I'll make sure she's on the no-fly list by noon. He straightened his tie, prepared to be the hero of Flight H402. The cabin door opened. Usually the jet bridge was empty, save for the gate agent. Today it was a sea of dark blue uniforms. 3 officers from the Port Authority Police Department stepped onto the plane. Behind them was a man in a sharp grey suit, Lucas Vance, the station manager for Royal Horizon at JFK. He looked terrified. Sweat was beading on his forehead, despite the air conditioning. Ryland Harrington stood in the aisle at the front of the cabin, blocking the path. He pointed an accusatory finger back toward seat 4D. Officers, over here, Ryland announced, taking charge. You're here for the disturbance, right? It's that woman in 4D. She started harassing me before we even left the gate. She made threats. She probably called in a hoax. I want to press charges for harassment and delay of business. The lead officer, a burly sergeant named Kowalski, looked at Ryland. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. He looked down at a piece of paper in his hand, then back at Ryland. Are you Mr. Harrington? Sergeant Kowalski asked. Yes, I am Ryland Harrington, Senior VP of Orion Capital. I'm the victim here. Kowalski stepped forward, forcing Ryland to back up into the space of seat 1A. Mr. Harrington, we aren't here for the lady in 4D. Lucas Vance, the station manager, stepped around the police officers. He was trembling slightly. He looked at Ryland with a mixture of professional duty and personal loathing. Mr. Harrington, Lucas said, his voice shaking. By order of the CEO of Royal Horizon Airlines, your ticket has been unilaterally cancelled. You have been blacklisted from this airline, effective immediately. We require you to deplane now. Ryland blinked. The words didn't make sense. It was like hearing someone speak a foreign language. Excuse me? Who do you think you're talking to? I'm Platinum. I fly this route every week. You can't cancel me. I'm in the middle of a trip. Sir, Sergeant Kowalski said, placing a hand on his belt. This is private property. The airline has revoked your right to be here. You are now trespassing. Grab your bag. This is insane! Ryland screamed, his face turning a mottled shade of crimson. Because of her, because I took a seat, I paid for a first-class ticket. This is reverse discrimination. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen. He turned to the cabin, arms wide. You see this? You see what's happening? Honest, hard-working men getting thrown off for nothing while— Mr. Harrington. A voice cut through the air like a whip crack. It wasn't the police. It wasn't the station manager. Vanessa St. James stood up in row 4. She walked slowly up the aisle. She didn't look tired anymore. She looked 10 feet tall. She held her phone in her hand, the screen glowing. She stopped 3 feet from Rylan. She looked at the station manager. "Mr. Vance, is it?" Vanessa asked. "Yes, Ms. St. James." Lucas Vance bowed his head slightly. "Again, on behalf of the airline, I am deeply sorry. The CEO, Mr. Penhaligon, is on the line with the tower now, ensuring your new flight plan is prioritized." "Thank you, Lucas," Vanessa said. She turned her gaze to Rylan. Rylan sneered. "Oh, look at you. You think you won? You think because you cried to customer service you're special? I'll buy this airline and fire everyone here. Do you know who I work for? Orion Capital. We own companies like yours for breakfast." Vanessa smiled. It was a cold, terrifying smile. "Orion Capital," Vanessa repeated. "Based in Chicago. Managing partner is Jonathan Roth. Your stock is trading at $100.50 as of this morning. Your biggest liquidity provider for the upcoming merger with Logitech is— Let me check." She pretended to look at her nails. "Oh, yes, it's Apex Global." Rylan froze. The color drained from his face so fast it looked like a plug had been pulled. "Apex?" he whispered. "I am Vanessa St. James," she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "CEO and founder of Apex Global, the company that is currently underwriting the loan that saves your firm from bankruptcy next quarter." The silence in the cabin was heavy, suffocating. The young tech guy in row 3 audibly gasped. "You," Rylan stammered. "You're St. James? But you were just standing there. You didn't look like— I didn't look like a CEO?" Vanessa finished for him. "Because I'm a black woman? Because I wasn't wearing a 3-piece suit? Because I was polite?" She took a step closer. "You stole my seat, Rylan. That was rude. But then you insulted my dignity. You questioned my right to exist in this space. And that was a career-limiting move." "Look, Ms. St. James," Rylan's voice cracked. He held his hands up, palms out. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a desperate, sweating panic. "I didn't know. Honest to God, I didn't know. It was a joke, just a misunderstanding. I'm under a lot of stress. Please, the Logitech deal. If I miss this meeting—" "You aren't going to the meeting, Rylan," Vanessa said. "And neither is Orion Capital." Vanessa held up her phone. "I have Jonathan Roth on speaker. I believe you know Jonathan." Rylan's knees actually buckled. He grabbed the side of the seat to hold himself up. "Jonathan, sir?" A voice boomed from the phone, tinny but unmistakable. It was the gravelly, terrifying voice of Jonathan Roth, a man known on Wall Street as the Butcher. "Harrington," Roth's voice growled. "Are you listening to me?" "Yes, Jonathan, I'm here. Listen, there's been a crazy mix-up. This woman is—" "Shut up!" Roth roared. The sound distorted on the speakerphone. "I have been on the phone with Vanessa St. James's office for the last 10 minutes. Do you have any idea what you have done? Vanessa St. James isn't just a lender, you moron. She sits on the board of the airport authority. She is the keynote speaker at the Davos summit I'm trying to get invited to, and you threw her out of her seat? Jonathan, please, let me explain." "There is nothing to explain. Apex Global has just informed us they are putting a hold on the bridge loan, citing concerns over Orion Capital's corporate culture and leadership judgment. Do you know what that does to us, Harrington? It tanks the deal. It tanks the stock." I can fix it, Rylan pleaded, tears actually forming in his eyes now. I'll apologize. I'll get on my knees. You can't fix it, Roth said, his voice turning icy cold. You represent a liability I cannot afford. As of this moment, you are terminated for cause. Your company credit card is cancelled. Your access to the London office is revoked. Do not go to the meeting. Do not go to the office. Go home, Rylan. You can't do this, Rylan shrieked. I have a contract. Sue me, Roth said, and good luck finding a lawyer who will go up against Apex and Orion. Goodbye. The line went dead. Vanessa lowered the phone. She looked at Rylan, who was now trembling, a broken shell of the man who had boarded 20 minutes ago. You asked for a lesson in how the world works, Vanessa said softly. The lesson is this. True power doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to steal seats. True power cleans the house. She turned to Sergeant Kowalski. Officer, this man is no longer a passenger, and since he is no longer employed, I believe his business visa for the UK might be invalid. You might want to check that. Kowalski smirked. We'll check everything, Mom. Let's go, Mr. Harrington. Rylan didn't move. He stared at the floor, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. I said, let's go, Kowalski barked. He grabbed Rylan by the arm. The other two officers grabbed his luggage. They dragged him out. It wasn't a dignified exit. Rylan Harrington, the man who owned the air, was half carried, half shoved down the aisle of the first-class cabin. As he passed the economy section, people who had heard the commotion craned their necks. Is that the guy? Someone whispered. Yeah, that's the guy who yelled at the lady. Loser. As Rylan disappeared into the jet bridge, the cabin erupted. It wasn't polite applause. It was cheering. The architect in 1C clapped. The flight attendants, Jennifer and Clara, exchanged a look of pure vindication. Vanessa didn't bow. She simply turned to Jennifer. Is seat 1A ready for me now? She asked. We just need to change the linens, Ms. St. James, Jennifer said, beaming. Give us 2 minutes to sanitize the entire area. We want to make sure no residue remains. Take your time, Vanessa said. She sat back down in 4D for a moment, while the crew frantically scrubbed seat 1A. Lucas Vance, the station manager, knelt beside her. Ms. St. James, again, I cannot apologize enough. We will be crediting your account with— Lucas, Vanessa stopped him. Don't credit my account. Take whatever compensation you are going to give me, double it, and divide it among the flight crew on this plane. They had to deal with him. They deserve it. Lucas looked at her, stunned. Yes, Mom. Absolutely. I will make that happen. 5 minutes later, Vanessa St. James settled into seat 1A. The seat was fresh, smelling of lavender and antiseptic. The partition was up. The world was shut out. She took a sip of the peppermint tea Jennifer brought her. She looked out the window as the plane pushed back for the second time. She saw a police car on the tarmac, lights flashing, driving a disheveled man toward the terminal. She closed her eyes. But the story wasn't over. Karma had hit Rylan Harrington. But Vanessa St. James was a strategist. She knew that men like Rylan didn't just go away. They festered, and she knew that the public needed to see this. She pulled out her phone one last time before takeoff. She opened her video camera. She didn't film herself. She filmed the empty seat across the aisle, the rain on the window, and spoke a soft narration. Today, I was reminded that some people still think the color of your skin dictates where you sit. Tomorrow, the world will remind them that the content of your character dictates where you stand. She posted it to her personal social media. 0 context, just the caption. Seat 1A. Know who you are. By the time the plane landed in London, that video would change everything. The 7-hour flight across the Atlantic was peaceful, but while Vanessa St. James slept wrapped in a duvet in Set 1A, the world below was burning. The internet does not sleep. The young tech entrepreneur in row 3, whose name was Leon, hadn't just watched the altercation. He had been live streaming to his Twitch audience of 40,000 followers. He had captured everything: Ryland's sneer, the racial slurs, the abuse of the flight crew, and the moment Vanessa revealed her identity. By the time Flight RH402 touched down at London Heathrow, the clip had migrated from Twitch to TikTok, and then to X, formerly Twitter. It had been viewed 14 million times. The hashtag #Seat1A was the #1 trending topic globally, sandwiched between a breaking news earthquake story and the Super Bowl rumors. Vanessa woke up as the wheels kissed the tarmac. She felt refreshed. She freshened up in the lavatory, reapplied her lipstick, and returned to her seat. Jennifer, the flight attendant, appeared with a fresh glass of orange juice and a look of awe on her face. "Miss St. James," Jennifer whispered, I think you should turn on your phone." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Is it bad?" It's everything," Jennifer said. "My husband just texted me. You're on CNN." Vanessa turned on her phone. It didn't just ping. It vibrated continuously for a full minute, overwhelmed by the deluge of notifications. Emails from her PR team, texts from board members, missed calls from major news outlets. But the most important message came from Jonathan Roth, the CEO of Orion Capital. "Vanessa, I am issuing a public apology. We are donating $5 million to the NAACP in your name. We are launching an internal investigation. Please pick up the phone. We need to save the merger." Vanessa didn't reply. She walked off the plane, not as a passenger, but as a phenomenon. As she entered the arrival hall of Terminal 5, she expected her driver. Instead, she was met by a wall of camera flashes. "Ms. St. James, Ms. St. James, do you have a comment on Ryland Harrington?" "Vanessa, over here! How does it feel to take down a giant?" Her driver, a stoic man named Adrian, pushed through the crowd. "This way, ma'am. Keep moving." Once inside the safety of the Bentley, Vanessa exhaled. She opened her tablet to see what had happened to Ryland Harrington while she was in the air. It was a massacre. While Vanessa was flying, Ryland had been detained by the Port Authority for 3 hours. By the time he was released, pending charges for interfering with a flight crew, he walked out into a terminal that recognized him. Someone had filmed him trying to buy a coffee at a kiosk. The barista had refused to serve him. The video showed Ryland screaming, "Do you know who I am?" and a bystander shouting back, "Yeah, you're the guy who hates seats." But the real blow came from his personal life. A tabloid site had dug up Ryland's past. They found 3 former assistants who had settled harassment suits against him. Orion Capital, in a desperate attempt to stop their stock price from free-falling, had released a statement. "Ryland Harrington's behavior is abhorrent and does not reflect the values of Orion Capital. He has been relieved of all duties, and we are reviewing his past tenure with scrutiny." And then, the final twist, a tweet from a verified account belonging to Catherine Harrington. "I have seen the video. I am mortified. I am taking our children to my mother's house. I will not be making further comments, other than to say that I stand with Ms. St. James." Divorce. Vanessa put the tablet down. She looked out the window at the grey London sky. She hadn't asked for any of this. She just wanted to sleep. But Ryland had pulled a thread, and the whole tapestry of his fake, privileged life had unravelled. "Where to, ma'am?" Adrian asked from the front seat. "The hotel?" "No," Vanessa said, her eyes sharpening. "Take me to the Orion Capital London office. I have a merger to renegotiate, and the price just went up." 6 months later. London was grey, a monochrome tapestry of slate skies and wet pavement. But inside the private boardroom of the Shard, the world was nothing but gold. Vanessa St. James stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the Thames winding through the city like a dark ribbon. The view was commanding, the kind of perspective usually reserved for gods and monarchs. Behind her, the air was thick with the scent of fresh espresso and the rustle of high-stakes legal documents. "Ms. St. James?" Vanessa turned. At the long mahogany table sat the gathered board of Logitech, the European logistics giant. Opposite them sat her own team from Apex Global. 6 months ago, this merger had been a shaky proposition, a delicate dance of numbers and egos. Now it was a coronation. "We are ready for signatures, Vanessa," said Sir Julian Thorne. Wait, no Julian allowed per rules, changing name. Sir Adrian Sterling, no Sterling allowed. Sir Edward Croft, the chairman of Logitech. He held a fountain pen that likely cost more than a mid-sized sedan. The revised terms regarding the ethical governance clause are aggressive, but given your recent, shall we say, public masterclass in corporate responsibility, the board feels we have no choice but to agree. Vanessa walked to the table. She didn't sit. She placed her hand on the leather-bound folio. "Aggressive is a strong word, Edward," she said, her voice smooth, carrying that effortless authority she had wielded on flight RH402. "I prefer necessary. Apex Global doesn't just move cargo. We move values. If we are going to merge our fleets, I need to know that the culture of this new entity won't tolerate the kind of toxicity that rots companies from the inside." Edward chuckled nervously. "Point taken. The Harrington clause, as the press is calling it?" "We don't use his name," Vanessa corrected him gently but firmly. "We call it the Dignity Protocol." She signed the document. The stroke of her pen merged 2 empires, creating a logistics superpower worth $40 billion. The room erupted in polite, wealthy applause. Champagne corks popped, vintage Dom Perignon, poured by silent, efficient waiters. As the celebration began, Vanessa felt a vibration in her pocket. She checked her phone. It was a text from her daughter, Maya, back in New York. "Mum, did you see the Forbes list? You're number 12 on World's Most Influential Women, and they used the photo of you from the airport." Vanessa smiled. The photo Maya was referring to wasn't a posed studio shot. It was a candid taken by a paparazzi at Heathrow the day the story broke. Vanessa walking through the terminal, head high, sunglasses on, looking like a warrior queen returning from battle. She slipped the phone back into her pocket. She had won. But unlike Rylan Harrington, she knew that winning wasn't about spiking the football. It was about preparing for the next game. "I'm going to step out for some air," Vanessa told her chief financial officer. "Enjoy the champagne. You earned it." 3 miles away, in a cramped, fluorescent-lit waiting room in Croydon, the atmosphere was very different. Rylan Harrington sat on a plastic chair that wobbled every time he shifted his weight. The room smelled of damp wool and stale coffee. He was clutching a plastic folder containing 3 copies of his resume, a resume that had once been the envy of Wall Street, listing accolades, deal closures, and his tenure as senior VP of Orion Capital. Now, that resume was a curse. "Mr. Harrington," a young woman called from behind a glass partition. She didn't look up from her computer. Rylan jumped up, smoothing his suit. It was a charcoal Armani, but it had seen better days. It was slightly loose on him now. The stress of the last 6 months had shaved 20 pounds off his frame, leaving him gaunt and hollow-eyed. "Yes, that's me," Rylan said, putting on his best closer smile. It felt brittle on his face. "I'm here for the 2:00 p.m. with Mr. Davies. the senior analyst position. The receptionist finally looked up. Her eyes narrowed. She typed something into a search bar. Ryland's stomach tightened. He knew that look. It was the Google look. Mr. Davies is unavailable, the receptionist said, her tone suddenly frosty. I have an appointment, Ryland insisted, leaning on the counter. I confirmed it this morning. Look, I know I'm overqualified for a senior analyst role, but I'm looking to pivot sectors, get my hands dirty. Mr. Harrington, she interrupted, swiveling her monitor around. Mr. Davies just sent me a message. He says the position has been filled. Filled, since this morning. Yes, filled. She looked him dead in the eye. He also said to tell you that this firm values inclusive team dynamics. I think you can show yourself out. Ryland stood there, the blood rushing to his ears. It was the 7th rejection this week, the 25th this month. He walked out of the building into the drizzle. He didn't have a driver waiting. His company car had been repossessed 4 months ago. His own car, the Porsche, had been sold to pay for the divorce lawyers. Catherine had been ruthless. She took the house in the Hamptons, the apartment on the Upper East Side, and full custody of the twins. She had cited irreconcilable public humiliation in the filing. Ryland walked to the bus stop. He sat on the bench, wet wood soaking through his trousers. He pulled out his phone. He had 4% battery left. He opened LinkedIn, a habit he couldn't break. His feed was full of it. The merger. Apex Global and Logitech announce historic partnership. And there she was, Vanessa St. James, smiling, shaking hands with Edward Croft. The headline read, "The Queen of the Skies conquers the boardroom." Ryland stared at the screen until his vision blurred. He wanted to scream. He wanted to throw the phone into traffic. But he couldn't afford a new phone. It wasn't fair. That was the thought that looped in his brain like a broken record. It wasn't fair. All he did was take a seat. It was a seat. He was a platinum flyer. He was Ryland Harrington. How could one woman, one moment, one video clip dismantle a 30-year career? He checked his bank account. $412.50. That was it. That was what remained of the empire of Ryland Harrington. He missed the bus. He decided to walk. He needed to be angry. He needed to move. He found himself wandering toward central London, drawn like a moth to the flame of the wealth he used to possess. Vanessa decided to walk back to her hotel, the Ritz. The rain had stopped, leaving the London streets glistening under the street lamps. She loved London in the autumn. It felt serious, grounded. She turned down Piccadilly, her coat collar turned up against the chill. She was thinking about the new ethical compliance officers she needed to hire for the European division. She was lost in thought, her heels clicking a steady rhythm on the pavement. She stopped at a newsstand near Green Park to buy a bottle of water. As she fumbled for a pound coin, a man bumped into her hard, knocking her purse from her shoulder. "Hey, watch where you're going," the man snapped. Vanessa froze. The voice. It was scratchy, desperate, but she knew it. It was the voice that had told her to scoot to economy. She bent down to pick up her purse. The man bent down at the same time, perhaps out of reflex, or perhaps to see if anything valuable had fallen out. Their eyes met under the fluorescent glow of the newsstand lights. Ryland Harrington recoiled as if he had touched a live wire. He scrambled back, nearly tripping over his own feet. He backed up against a lamp-post, breathing heavy, panicked breaths. "You!" he gasped. Vanessa stood up slowly. She brushed a speck of dirt from her coat. She looked at him. Really looked at him. He was a ghost. The arrogance that had filled the first-class cabin was gone, replaced by a twitchy, fearful energy. His hair was unkempt. He hadn't shaved in days. His eyes were red-rimmed. "Hello, Ryland," Vanessa said. Her voice wasn't triumphant. It wasn't angry. It was just calm. "Are you following me?" Rylan hissed, looking around wildly. "Is there a camera crew? Are you filming this? Go ahead, finish me off. There's nothing left to take." "I'm not following you, Rylan," Vanessa said. "I'm buying water. You bumped into me." Rylan let out a jagged, hysterical laugh. "I bumped into you. Of course. Just like I bumped into your seat. And look what happened then." He stepped closer, his hands shaking. "Do you know what you did? Do you have any idea? My wife left me. My kids. My kids won't talk to me because they get bullied at school. Your dad is the racist plane guy. That's what they call me. I lost my equity. I lost my reputation. I can't even get a job filing papers." "And whose fault is that, Rylan?" Vanessa asked. "Yours," he shouted, causing a passing couple to hurry away. "It's yours. You could have just moved. You could have just sat in 4D and taken the free drink and shut up. But no, you had to make a scene. You had to call the CIO. You had to ruin me over a chair." Vanessa sighed. It was a deep, weary sound. She stepped forward, entering his personal space. Rylan flinched, shrinking back against the cold metal of the lamppost. "Rylan, look at me," she commanded. He looked. He couldn't help it. She possessed a gravity he couldn't resist. "You still don't get it," she said softly. "You think this happened because of a seat. You think this happened because I was petty. But that seat was just the stage. The performance was all yours." She gestured to the street around them. "You moved through the world thinking you were the main character, Rylan. You thought everyone else, the flight attendants, the gate agents, people who look like me, were just extras in your movie. You thought you could treat people like furniture because you had a platinum card." "I apologized," Rylan cried. "I told the airline I was sorry." "You apologized because you got caught," Vanessa corrected him. "You apologized to save your stock options, not my dignity." Rylan slumped. The fight drained out of him. He slid down the lamppost until he was crouching on the sidewalk, his head in his hands. He began to sob. It was an ugly, raw sound, the sound of a man who has realized, too late, that he is the villain of his own story. "I don't know what to do," he whispered into his palms. "I have nothing. I'm 50 years old and I have nothing." Vanessa looked down at him. A part of her, the part that remembered the humiliation in the cabin, wanted to walk away. She wanted to leave him in the puddle of his own making. It would be poetic justice. But Vanessa St. James was not just a CEO. She was a leader. And true leaders didn't just destroy, they built, even when the materials were flawed. She opened her purse. She took out a notepad and a gold pen. She scribbled a name and an address. She crouched down, her expensive coat sweeping the wet pavement until she was eye level with him. "Rylan," she said. He looked up, tears streaking his grime-stained face. "You will never work in finance again," she said brutally. "That door is closed. You welded it shut." He nodded, a fresh wave of despair hitting him. "But," she continued, "that doesn't mean you can't work." She handed him the piece of paper. "What is this?" he asked, taking it with trembling fingers. "It's a contact for a non-profit in East London called Second Chance. They focus on rehabilitation and job placement for formerly incarcerated individuals and people who have fallen from grace." Rylan stared at the paper. "You want me to work at a charity?" "I want you to go there and ask for Marcus," Vanessa said. "He runs the program. I sit on their board. They need someone to teach basic financial literacy, how to balance a checkbook, how to save for an apartment, how to understand credit." I I was managing billion-dollar mergers, Rylan stammered. And now you have $400 in your bank account, Vanessa said, her eyes piercing his soul. She didn't know the exact amount, but she knew the look of desperation. You are going to teach these young men how to avoid the mistakes you made. You are going to teach them that character is a currency more valuable than crypto. Why? Rylan asked, his voice barely audible. After everything I said to you, why help me? Vanessa stood up, towering over him once more. Because, Rylan, she said, adjusting her scarf. Unlike you, I don't believe in throwing people away. I believe in redemption. But redemption isn't given. It's earned. Go to Marcus, do the work, learn humility. It's the only asset you have left that hasn't depreciated. She didn't wait for an answer. She turned on her heel and walked away, disappearing into the London fog. Rylan sat on the sidewalk for a long time. He looked at the paper. Second chance. He looked at the retreating figure of the woman he had tried to erase. Slowly, painfully, he used the lamp-post to pull himself to his feet. He wiped his face with his sleeve. He put the paper in his pocket, right next to his worthless resume. He turned toward the east. He started walking. 2 hours later, Vanessa was back where she belonged. The first-class cabin of the Royal Horizon, Boeing 777, was quiet. The lights were dimmed to a soothing indigo. The hum of the engines was a familiar lullaby. Miss St. James? Jennifer, the same flight attendant from 6 months ago, appeared with a warm smile and a steaming mug. Peppermint tea, just how you like it. Thank you, Jennifer, Vanessa said, taking the mug. She looked around the suite. The leather was soft. The wood was polished. The privacy partition was raised. She was in seat 1A. She took a sip of the tea. She thought about the merger she had just signed. She thought about Rylan Harrington walking through the rain in Croydon. She thought about the strange, circular nature of karma. She pulled out her phone and opened her photo gallery. She found the video Leon had taken, the one that had started it all. She watched it on mute. She saw Rylan screaming. She saw herself standing tall. She deleted it. She didn't need the reminder anymore. She didn't need to carry the anger. The debt had been paid. The balance sheet was cleared. She leaned back, pressing the button to recline her seat into a bed. She pulled the duvet up to her chin. She looked out the window as the plane taxied to the runway. The lights of London blurred into streaks of gold and amber. The pilot's voice came over the intercom, smooth and confident. Ladies and gentlemen, we are cleared for takeoff. Next stop, New York. Vanessa closed her eyes. The engines roared, a sound of pure power, pushing her back into the seat that was, and always would be, hers. As the wheels left the ground, lifting her into the dark, limitless sky, she whispered one final word into the quiet cabin. Higher! Rylan Harrington learned the hard way that in the modern world, character is the only currency that matters. He thought his status protected him, but he forgot that true power isn't about how loud you can scream. It's about how much respect you command when you whisper. Vanessa St. James didn't just reclaim her seat. She reclaimed her dignity and exposed a bully to the entire world. It's a reminder to everyone. Treat people with respect. You never know who you're talking to, and you never know when the world is watching. Wow, what a satisfying ending, right? Seeing Rylan try to offer excuses while Vanessa just dropped facts was absolutely legendary. It really makes you think about how quickly things can change when you let ego drive the bus. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more stories like this. And hey, If you've ever had a crazy travel experience or dealt with an entitled person like Rylan, let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you never miss out on the next drama. We have a crazy story coming up next week about a landlord who tried to evict a tenant, only to find out the tenant owned the bank holding his mortgage. You do not want to miss that. Thanks for watching, stay kind, and I'll see you in the next one.